Joe, you spoke about creating a culture. I think when you then sit at an exco meeting, you are driving a particular strategy, but it must meet the strategy of the institution itself, as well as sitting with your partners, helping them see, or rather wanting them to see eye to eye with you. How do you then try meet the requirements that you have from an innovation perspective with Exco, but also considering that you just said you create this culture with your teams? How do you merge the two?
Sometimes it's a difficult way to balance because, we constantly have to get our numbers balancing. We have to meet a plan, and everybody wants to meet a plan. All right, that's fine. But then you tell people that I expect you to be 80% fully utilized, while I expect you to use a 20% to be more involved and innovative. Then you create that culture whereby people know that as much as I'm expected to be as productive as I should be, but I'm given an opportunity and a chance to sort of be innovative. You take their ideas and you escalate the ideas. We talk about finance. At Aecom, we've got every year, we're looking for the mind blazers, we're looking for the tech stars, we're looking for people that think out of the box more or less. And therefore, we have to allow them to have a time when they can sit together as a team, group of people across the globe sometimes, a different time set, as to say how they're going to just get that to the business and how do we utilize it. Because the one thing that we sometimes do is that we allow people to have this culture of being innovative, and we get too many innovations. And then what do? We drop all of them.
Oh, dear.
Therefore, people will not want to participate in the following year. You tell them that we're looking for a tech star, someone who is technologically advanced, if we talk about tech star, and someone who can just give us, that edge of doing things differently. And they will not participate. Ask yourself why. Because in the previous year, they gave you brilliant ideas. They could have saved you money. It was going to cost you in the beginning, but they could have saved you money. They will be more engaged, because when you talk about employees, talk about people that must be enabled, like Sandra said. If you're enabled, to give them the tools, but they must be engaged. That means they must see the role they play to take a global organization as big as Aecom to the future, and they must feel to be part of that. Thus, you get that innovation going, and you are able to reward if people come with the good ideas. We're going to Los Angeles now in a few weeks, whereby those who came up with the brilliant ideas will be shaking hands with the group CFO and CEO. And they feel like, they're part of this organization. But in most cases then, because I work for an engineering company, we leave behind the finance people. we almost feel as if they don't belong to that group.
Dear.
They do.
They do.
They're innovative, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, the FRS's return is there, we just follow the guy. That's not the end of it.
Yeah.
How do you interpret it? How do you make it work? How do you take it from South Africa, Mozambique, Zambia, and wherever you're operating, to make everybody then to feel as this will work for me in this fashion? Of course, you still have your compliance. You still have to report same numbers that are coming out. That is what you need. Therefore, you allow everybody to participate and embrace the culture of change, embrace the culture of innovation, because they are rewarded and everybody acknowledges what they do.
Thanks, Joe. So, Sandra, being a multinational, how do you then take what's happening on the ground at home and trying to take the global values, and within innovation and within the cost limitations that you have, how do you merge the two to make sure that, I know this is not possible, but everybody's happy?
So sometimes it's a bit challenging, and I must say there are tools and within the finance space, or even just for the overall from a business capability, there are tools or technology that are used in other countries in the U.S. and more some of the more mature markets for us, and that are not at our disposal here.
Okay.
But we still have to work with a level of efficiency and to get the job done, right?
Right.
With the same level of quality. So what we've done in our team, we leverage the expertise of the different individuals.
Okay.
You'll find even though we're all finance professionals, you have some individuals who are more tech savvy. So it may not necessarily be an IBM specific tool, but through their own learning or experience, they have insight about different analytical tools or solutions that we could also deploy internally and leverage that for our own internal reporting. So we have to be a bit creative in some regards. And then you also have the dynamic where, depending on the range of experience with your staff, you'll find entry-level individuals sometimes are more adapt to certain technology, and then you have individuals who have a lot more experience, particularly about the business. They may not be as receptive to learning new tools, right? So within that, vast array of dynamics in terms of the skill sets on your team, you have to identify the go-to people with certain things. Now, you're going to have the people, again, that are strong technically, but they may not have the business insight or experience to put context around certain things. And then you have the more, I call it seasoned professionals, who could bring that expertise. So in that dynamic, we just have to tap in and leverage where the expertise or the core competences are, outside of, acquiring a new technology if it's not readily available to us in the market.
Yeah, that's quite eloquently put, how the new school meets the old school to create the current school.
I was careful not to say old and new. I mean, old and new, because I just didn't want to get caught in that one.
Did you to say that?
Yes, it was me. Joe, you're part of a digital transformation committee.
I am.
That is quite great to hear.
It's got nothing to do with finance, by the way, okay?
Okay,
Just
sure.
so where you drive the business.
Okay,
Go
let's
ahead.
hear about that. Please tell us about that.
So we have realized that sometimes we are Africa and we a little bit far from the rest. And, what is it that we do here that could be more on the digital space that is done elsewhere?
Okay.
But again, how do we do it at the right pace? Because you cannot tell me that you're going to take something that is working in America or in England because they're so advanced and it works maybe in Africa where you still have to start with basics.
Okay.
Nonetheless, there are things that are done there that we could use. I mean, one of them, as an example, if you do not mind to give me that, is a BIM tool, which is the building information modeling, whereby, because we build the buildings, we build the roads and everything else, and then as part of the committee, that you can adopt here in Africa, because it helps you to know where you are, what's happening, and the costs are not so high, because you're going to struggle whereby if you want to invest too much, and then maybe the returns are not coming as quick as that, because everybody is looking for a quick returns. So you need to balance that. And you must know what you have, because you're going to need people to drive that as the resources. They're not cheap. You're going to need those tools, and they're not cheap to license as well. So all these things you need to balance with your revenue. What is it that you're producing? Where will you be? Why do you want to use those tools? Why do you want to be part of maybe the tool that has been bought and get a license to be used here in Africa? The one I gave you, for example, I mean, we are engaging our clients on that tool so much, and they like it because it gives you, for argument's sake, from drawing up to the time you operate and maintain your facility. And it takes you through the stages. But as finance people, where do we get involved in?
Yeah.
The cost will come from finance. We have to agree with investment. Therefore, you cannot afford not to sit on the table to make those decisions.
Right.
You have to be part of that committee.
And have a holistic understanding of the business and why the funds are going there.
See the pros and cons of why do you buy this, what are the costs, what are the benefits, and the benefits might not be seen as obvious as you might think as
Or
a finance
as
person.
immediate, yes.
As immediate.
Yes.
Therefore, you have to have a long view of where you want to go, and people need to know that you're not just ticking the boxes as cost.
Yeah.
How do you then help them? How do you take them forward? I think you want to agree.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly, and this is my personal opinion, not IBM's opinion. But I must say that finance professionals who see themselves as checking the box and the no person or the policeman, at some point you're going to find that you're not going to have a place in finance as the role of finance evolve. Yeah. So you have to literally change how you engage with the business, the whole mindset, right?
Right.
You can't resort to, other than you're going to be parked in the car and that role is going to go away. With automation and some of the more, the more routine aspects or the mechanical aspects of what we do, they're going to be a technology soon to take care of that.
Yeah.
So if you don't have insight and you don't try to have context, look at overall business, be a part of that strategy, because those things are not as easily replaced, then you're going to get left behind. You literally have to do it.
Yes.
Just to speak about advantages and benefits, please can you tell us, Joe, about BIM technology?
Yeah, we call it BIM. We're engineers, okay? I'm a CFO, but I call myself an engineer because I get too much involved sometimes and they kick me out of meeting. Nonetheless, that being the case, what is important is that tool, I think some of you might be coming from engineering field as well. They will tell you it's called BIM, is Building Information Modeling. In the past, we had what we call a 2D, whereby you do a drawing, which is so nice, the sentence city, and then you see how the traffic integrates, how do we improve things. And you go to a 3D, whereby while you're still designing, you can work with your client, who can tell you that actually, I thought this building will have a pole in the middle, but guess what? It's going to look ugly because that pole is not going to be there. I want it to shift.
Okay.
At the same time, when you shift that pole, you can see what cost is going to sort of incur because of moving or those changes, whether it's more cement, more steel, or trusses, whatever the case might be. It helps him. It does the timing. It does the cost. As I said, it will take you through until the time you do your facility management, which is now your operations, your maintenance, because everybody, the biggest cost in a building is not to build a building, it's to maintain it.
Okay.
So if you can be able to give someone a tool that will tell him how can he reduce the cost of maintaining when you're gone, because we're going to build it and leave it with you. You're going to live in there. You're going to maintain that building. You're going to innovate and make sure that it's still relevant as you progress and produce whatever you're producing there. Thus, if someone tells you, I'm not here interested in getting the money through the construction, I'll be here with you more or less to see you when you maintain that building, when you renew or get the new tools, how's it going to integrate? Do you have to run in a building when there's fire for you to switch a stop? Or can you do it from your laptop, from your phone elsewhere? Those are kind of things that people want to see. But sometimes they don't want to pay for it because they haven't seen the benefits. That's where the trick comes in.
Yeah. And Sandra, you were just speaking about data, for instance. I think if you remember the times of extrapolating data into an Excel spreadsheet, eliminating cells and rows, etc. When we were previously speaking, you spoke about successes within data and analytics. Do you just want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we, as finance professionals, we can add a lot more value today than we could from a business standpoint in the past because we spend a lot of time inputting data. Today, there are tools such as Watson Analytics. Well, they're tools for different industries, so not everything will apply to every industry, but there are tools such as Watson Analytics, blockchain technology. All of these tools are looking at trends, historical data. The data is there. I think 90% of the world's data today we acquired over the last 4 or 5 years, in the more recent years. So we have a ton of data today. We shouldn't be spending our time inputting data, right? Because there are tools and technology to do that. Instead, we should leverage those tools and technology to get insight or foresight so that we can influence decisions from a strategic standpoint to really enhance business capabilities or operational efficiency. There's so much more to the role of finance today. It's the analytical, the insights that we get from these analytical tools, artificial intelligence or just cognitive capabilities. There's a whole bunch of different things out there, right? So we have to tap into it and figure out what works for your industry, your sector, your organization, and let the tool do the work for you, do that type of the manual work for you, so that you can focus on the more value-added items or outcomes out of it, right? Even the charts itself. We spent a lot of time in the past building PowerPoints and graphs and all that type of stuff. The tools will do that for you. So so we have to figure, what's our role now today? So again, it comes back to how our roles have evolved. And we have to now position ourselves in front of, at the face of those technology and take the information that's coming out of it, package it in a way that you can engage at a C-suite level or across organization, just that whole ecosystem that makes a whole organization function. So that's the power of the technology. That's how, data, that's the value of data today. It just takes the manual work out of it for us that we could just add higher value to what we do. You were saying
If you don't mind me adding,
No, go ahead.
Yeah, gone are the days whereby you'll go to the meeting with the spreadsheet upon spreadsheet, and they think that you are very intelligent because they can talk whatever language they talk. You have to go to a meeting with a purpose of saying in 30 minutes, the decision should be made, informative decision, not just based on, because you're presenting the summarized information already instead of going back and fit people that, where did the information come from. The background information is still important because you still need to check that, you need to understand that because it might be wrong and it will give a wrong answer. But, you want to go to a meeting, and I said to people, it's you said it's your own opinion, it's my opinion. If you're going to present more than 5 slides in front of me and tell me to make a decision, I'll tell you to go and prepare.
Yeah.
It's too much. I don't know what you want, and you're not innovative enough for you to come with 2 or 1 pager. Let's make a decision and let's go forward. Because we don't have a time where everybody has to be involved in a debit and a credit, like I've been saying. Sorry, it's just just the nitty-gritties of it. You've got accountants that will assist you, and you will help them to understand it. When you get to the CFO level, that info is there. That info will be provided to you accurately and, of course, precisely and timelessly. But then you just use the info that is relevant to the people you're talking to, instead of having too much of a background, and then people do not know actually what is it that you're telling, because perhaps you're a good storyteller like I am, okay? But that's not critical.
Yeah.
People don't want that.
That's not the point.
They're looking for an answer or a solution. They don't want the problems. You'll state what the problem is, but what is the solution?
solution.
And invite them then to get engaged.
But
Yeah, and
then
I would say, I'm sorry, Dee, I would just add, earlier in my career, not more recent, I remember we used to go to meetings with 70 pages in one presentation.
A pack.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
pack.
a meeting over an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, just so, and half the time we didn't get through the whole 70 pages, but that's the amount of time we spent preparing this stuff. We don't have to do that anymore. Yeah.
Because you are in the built environment, and I don't know how this will impact you, Sandra, but a lot of people think that CFOs, FDs, accountants are insensitive to people at the bottom because it's the people at the bottom who do the manual work. So once we start having analytics, robotics, etc., taking out the manual work, in South Africa we have a skills shortage. So if we have 10 people with limited skills who are used to doing something manually, what are we going to do to upskill these people? And secondly, consider the costs of upskilling them so that when we eliminate the manual work, where are we placing them? How are we changing their minds and adapting their minds towards the future? And by the same token, be viable businesses which are multinationals in South Africa. So we've allowed you to come to do business in our land. How are you making sure that our people who don't have skills are employed so that we can also alleviate things like crime?
You want to go first?
I'll go first, okay. So one thing that keeps me awake at night is that the knowledge that people possesses today is not passed to the next generation.
Yeah.
That is a problem. As a leader, you must make sure when you leave tomorrow, someone will sit on that seat and know what you did. You must be replaceable. So it goes back to the people that you believe that they don't have skills. They've got brains. Tap into those brains, you will see how much they can help you. Does I go back to my point of creating a culture whereby people are allowed to not undermine themselves and sit back. I mean, I'll just talk about a little bit. We've got what we call educational trust. And we're not looking for people that could afford when they pay for university or colleges and stuff like that. We're looking for brilliant minds. And some of the minds, they are brilliant, but they don't have much that, can expose them. So you invite them to your organization and let them learn from those who are there. At the same time, then what you do, you create a culture where your organization is getting to be known to be socially good to what you're supposed to do, but that's not the point. The point is that you helping people that you believe that you cannot employ, and you train them. I mean, if I can tell you my history, it would take the whole day. I was at the point where by myself I thought, coming from the homelands, who's going to hire me? How? I do not know so much about the city life and the things that they do there, but someone held my hand and took me through the learning ropes of the businesses until where I am today. Why don't I do that to other 5 or so people? I can't do to 100 or more. Otherwise, I'm not going to do the job at this level whereby they will be sustaining themselves. That's very important. So what we do is that, of course, you'll have those who are very bright, they come with the A's for mathematics, and then we want to hire them. But I've always been saying that there's someone who doesn't have an A in mathematics, but who can do this thing if he's given an opportunity. Give everybody the same platform evenly and see who is going to jump. You will be surprised who is jumping the highest.
Sandra?
So for us, so IBM historically has been known as a hardware software company. And as we go through the transformation now where we're becoming more solutions oriented, equally important to the solutions is the talent of our team. So IBM has spent a lot and continues to spend a lot in the skills development. Globally, here in South Africa, in fact, our CEO just launched earlier this year a program called Digital Nation Africa. It's free. It's about equipping, educating, not just South Africa, but you can't hear me?
Give the name again just for the audience.
Digital Nation Africa.
Okay.
It's free online courses and material in the technology space that you can access, because it's not even just educating or empowering individuals for IBM. It's about Africa. It's about building, uplifting the skill set across South Africa, and it's starting with aligning with at the high school level, because we believe if the skill set is there across the market, then it also positions us when we go to recruit that we don't have to offshore certain things. We have the talent on the ground.
Yeah.
So part of it is just making sure that we invest in the skills development of the resources on the ground. So when it's time to hire, maybe you're in high school now and you're interested in it, but when we need to hire 10 years from now, you would have already been exposed to a lot of the material. So we take it very seriously, and it's something that we've heavily invested in. The resources are just as equal as the solutions, right?
Right.
So that's the approach we've taken to it.
Thanks for that. I think you've also clarified that the CFO and the FD aren't necessarily the police and the no guys. They do a lot of facilitation of a lot of things within the business. Joe, just to speak about then the advancements of, because now you're going to invest so much and you have been investing so much. So let's speak about the longevity of your investments and the advancements then in the long term. How do you then justify that when you sit at the table and say, this is what you want to employ?
It becomes difficult sometimes, as you said, at times because you make promises when you are given investment, that I will return whatever you gave me in 5 years, 10 years' time. And at times it takes longer. I'm not sure it's only because of Africa or it just takes longer everywhere else. But, then how do you then make sure that you sustain and get that going forward and you get another investment while maybe you didn't return it at the time? It's more or less to keep people or the investors abreast of where you are.
Okay.
And they know what is it that you have done, what have you achieved, and they sometimes don't hide your failures.
Okay.
Because at times you tend to hide your failures and someone picks up, and guess what? You lose. There is a trust.
Okay.
And that you cannot buy. You cannot just get people to buy you because you're Aecom, you're so big, you've got 90,000 employees throughout the world.
Yeah.
Hey, there's another company that's got 10, but it's better than you, and it's giving better returns than you. So you have to remain relevant and make sure that there is that longevity.
Longevity.
Yeah, you can write. Okay, not me. That's fine. This is called a tongue-tied. The sustainability, is that the same thing? More or less, isn't it? You go longer.
Yes.
Yeah, you go longer in that. So, that's very crucial because, we're not here to run this company and then tomorrow is gone. They wouldn't invest and come and fly their flag in Africa if they didn't believe that Africa is there for the future.
Yeah.
Therefore, you have to make sure that their returns, even if sometimes are delayed, but the reasons for the delays are put on the table because that's one thing I've experienced. I sold an idea with a 2-year return and it didn't happen.
Oh, dear.
It didn't go so well because I didn't manage expectation.
Okay.
Again, then it made people to doubt you when you go back and say, by the way, that didn't work, but I need more to do something else. Guess what?
No.
You know, in
Yeah.
a get this. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did.
Okay,
because
thank you.
I think what we can place emphasis on there is that you said be visible and
visible.
be transparent with
Yeah.
the proceedings.
Yeah, even your failure, acknowledge your failures. And tell them why your failures are that, what have you learned from them. And in that way, then you gain a trust, and then they know how to support you
Yeah.
because they know what went wrong.
Yeah, trust is built, not bought.
And then within that, I would say, well, it's part of the setting expectation, but sometimes you have to course correct in the middle of that plan.
yes, of course.
And people also have to be open to that too, because things will change, right? From when you first propose something or recommend something, but you have to be able to adjust or be adaptable within the mix of that.
And in the preparation for this, just to touch on what Joe was saying, Sandra, you said if any advice, you spoke about being open. Can you just elaborate on what Joe was saying about transparency?
Well, in terms of, yes, absolutely. You have to be transparent as you approach the changes that we're faced with. And I think that transparency builds trust, right? So even if you don't have the right answer, or if you don't quite get the return, people understand that, you know, from the very beginning, you were very open and honest in what the thought process was, the journey. But at the end of the day, I mean, if I had to tie it back around to just what I said initially, you have to embrace it. You have to embrace the shift. The outcome may not necessarily yield as you previously expected, but don't bail ship. Don't say, oh, let me change. Because again, as we move forward and just trying to tie it back in with technology, we don't have the choice of doing nothing. That's just the reality. You don't. So one thing may not have worked, but it doesn't mean that you don't continue to challenge and figure out what are the next best technology to apply in your given environment. And just manage the expectation, right? And if you have to course correct and do something differently, you do it differently, but you continue. But doing nothing is not an option.
Thank you very much for that. So in closure, Joe, I think you've given us a lot of examples. Thank you very much. And thank you for also just being honest to say that you can't change the world, you can't change 100, but you can change 1 or 3 or 5 lives. In closing, what would you just like to wrap up about the abilities of finance with innovation?
Finance is a crucial part of the business. It's not just the people that are reporting the numbers behind. We are ahead. Innovation is affecting us as well. It's not about maybe the business that you believe that we're in the built environment and those are the guys that must deal with innovation. If there's a men blazers or the tech stars, it does include finance people.
Okay.
We are part of that organization, and importantly, we have to make sure that when we get a seat on the table, we've got our views.
Yep.
And if our views are different, they are different from what they wants to be done. But we do not want to sit back and when people are done and we almost undo it because the decision in finance didn't want to pay or didn't want to place that order.
Yeah.
That is gone. We have to be ahead of everything. We have to be part of the innovation and part of the business on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you for that. Sandra, in closing?
Yeah, I would echo what Joe has said 100%. The days where people see finance coming up the hallway and they're around, here come finance, everybody stop talking, you know, or they turn their back and change the conversation, that should be behind us. And that's because of how they perceive us. So we have to change how we're perceived and how the role of finance is perceived. And it's a difficult task, but we also have to find the balance between cost cutting and investment.
Yeah.
And that's just not just investment in our own finance resources, but equipping the business, enabling the business capabilities. So it's more of a strategic long-term view, but that's how we have to start thinking about it.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for Finance and Innovation. A round of applause for my guests.
Thank you.
Thank you.